So what do we think then? If we just go through them all and then you can comment on what your discussions yielded. So peer observation of teaching, you've all had a go at that, either doing or receiving. What do you think the benefits of peer observation are? Did anybody discuss that one?
We did it amongst ourselves.
Right.
I went to Dr. Urhan's class and she came to my class. And we had a great time.
Okay. And what do you think the benefits of using peer observation are?
The benefits are... Normally, peer observation is not done at our university.
Okay.
Some of the other forms of evaluation are being currently conducted, but peer observation is not. For me, it was a nice change to have a peer's opinion on that particular class and that particular teaching method.
Okay. And as the observer, either of you, how did you feel about it?
Actually, I was really inspired by her classes, by her delivery. So it's a nice experience for me because I'm a maybe more newcomer in the world of academia, so it was nice for me.
Right.
And I also saw what kind of mistakes maybe I'm making in delivery. Maybe somebody is delivering me some comments, so it's a nice thing for me because I like being criticized.
Yeah.
But we also discussed that maybe this might be there might be a problem because of political issues in the department, in Turkey especially, because sometimes the observations, the peer observations, might not be objective.
Right. Okay.
So this is a main critical issue in Turkey. What do you think?
Some people may have an axe to grind unless this
because
is done by somebody external.
Yeah. I think there's. Does anybody else want to comment on that experience or observations?
Well, I enjoy watching Dr. Urhan's delivery also. I learned from her too. So for me, it was a learning experience. So I think she was also a very enthusiastic instructor.
Yeah. I think it can be a hugely sort of constructive and affirmative process. You can for both the observer and the observed, you can get some new ideas, and obviously sort of share those. I think it can be quite difficult if you're doing it as two close colleagues. It can be quite difficult to critique the other person if they're doing something that you sort of think that really didn't work, and thinking about the language that you use without kind of offending them and trying to think about it. So it's actually quite a skill in terms of giving constructive feedback to the person, because they've opened their doors to you and invited you in. So it's like, if I invite you round to my house for coffee and cake, and you come round and go, well, your coffee stinks, and I don't like your cake, you kind of immediately thinking, well, okay, right, you can go away again then, I mean, there is that feeling, isn't there, that how do you provide constructive feedback to someone when they're a colleague? I mean, the alternative, as you suggested, is, you get assigned somebody from the department, and, they could be hopefully more objective, but obviously there are other things perhaps going on, but hopefully they'll get an objective view of the teaching. Maybe they're not as close to your actual subject and they don't understand the challenges, or maybe if you get negative feedback from them, you're like, well, they don't know what they're talking about anyway, so it might be easier to ignore them. So there's pros and cons of both approaches, and sometimes peer observation, certainly when it's come centrally, can be linked to appraisal, and people can feel very kind of nervous and anxious about it, rather than it should be about improving your practice. It shouldn't be about identifying the bad teachers. It should be about helping all the teachers improve, which, I think we can all improve. Okay, so I've joined the next two together. Well, in-class surveys, does anybody use those at the end of their classes to ask students how they any thoughts on those, how effective they are?
At the end of the semester, I always do that. I just let them write something, but I manipulate them. Okay, what do you think? I criticize the method
Right.
criticize the material
Yeah.
and criticize the approach of the instructor. So
Right.
they write
Thank you.
about these three subjects.
Right.
So they don't write their names.
Okay, so it's just anonymous survey. Yeah.
Yes.
And you just do that once at the end of the module.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
And really, they are very useful. I benefit from their opinions,
Yeah.
especially they criticize the method part is very useful. Because the new activities or
Yes, especially when
teaching
you're trying something new.
activities, yes, they work with a group, but sometimes they don't work with another group.
Yeah, yeah. Yes, yes. Anybody else use surveys either after each class or at the end of a module or a semester? Yeah?
Well, at the beginning of the semester, in the first lesson, I make a survey and I'm asking their expectation.
Uh-huh.
But usually their expectation in that column, they were A+. And I say that please write something other than A+. And there are some good ideas what they expect from the lesson. And I also ask what their background are, so that what previous courses they taken, so that I can balance the issues or make the outline of the course better.
Yeah.
But what I observe, and I do another survey about the advisor survey, something like that, and I observe that they do not write bad things. They either write good things or they write nothing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
comments.
yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? I think there's quite a lot of cultural kind of differences as well. There's some references at the end of this piece about that kind of those sort of things. There's people done some work. There's an app called Rate My Professor. Are you familiar with that? It's like an online sort of global tool. And the data where they look at that, they'll see that the female professors always get rated lower than men. It's kind of really is a very distinctive and age and and ethnicity and things like that have a real impact on how people perceive their professors, which is quite worrying really when you have those things. So so I think that's interesting. Anybody else? Anybody kind of get feedback on a daily basis, or not daily basis, but on after every lesson from their students? So this doesn't have to be a whole survey on the thing, but do you say, ask them, so one of the common ones, and I think I did it with you a few times, where you just put it on a post-it note, how you're feeling at the end of today, was there anything you didn't understand, anything you want me to go over, and you just gather those up, they just stick them on the desk as they leave, so they're anonymous, they're just scrawled on a piece of paper. Does anybody do anything like that? Okay, so that can be quite a quick effect, especially if you're perhaps going to a new concept, and you want to make sure that they've understood it, or you tried a new technique and you might want to make sure they're all happy and comfortable with that, and just have that kind of an anonymous, stick a post-it note on the door, status update, you can just use the trendy jargon and say, well, give me your status update for today, how are you feeling after today's lesson? Are you confident about going forward to the exam? Are you confident about graduating? Confident about the topic? Just makes you seem more open to classes. Anybody use online evaluation forms used at all in Turkey?
The university does.
The university does, and they kind of just all the courses are evaluated by the students. Yeah. I think they tend to they're used very, very widely in the UK, but I think they're kind of overused, and the students just kind of click, and it's almost like, I'm sure you could do some analyses where once you've started in one column, when you've got the sort of satisfaction, not satisfied through to satisfied, and I think they just start clicking on one row and they just keep going, they just stay in that same column all the way down, and it has to be a really kind of, starkly different question to get them to move,
Then you have to be careful when you design the questions.
Yeah.
Asking about the same thing but in a different form.
Yes, yeah. So I think that's quite interesting. Informal conversations, either with your students or colleagues, how effective is that at evaluating your practice? Conversations over coffee, conversations at the end of class with students.
Some of my students that I'm the advisor of them, when they take my lessons, at the end of each lecture, there was a special guy and says, "Oh, professor, it was a nice lesson, but sometimes he says, I understand nothing from the lesson."
Right.
So it will be better if you do something like that. That he also
Right.
advised something.
Right. And that's quite nice actually. If you've got somebody in the class, you know, that you sort of trust that. Well, if he didn't get it, then chances are half of them didn't get it, or 2/3 of them didn't get it. So you know, you maybe go back and yeah.
Usually in my classes, students chose a representative.
Oh, okay, yeah.
themselves. So
Yeah.
somebody becomes a representative
Yes.
and communicates with you
Yeah,
what the
yeah.
problem with the class is.
That when that works well, that can be quite useful. Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes people, I don't know. I taught on classes where the person who was the student rep, he only ever, so there was a course with maybe lots of choices of modules, but he only ever reported on the ones that he studied. And you think, like, he's not really gathering information from everybody, you know, it's just his opinion. But anyway, yeah. External examinations, so you have external examiners looking at your assessment processes? No, you don't have that system here. Okay. So they're currently reviewing the external examination system in the UK. So every degree programme in the UK has an external examiner, which is somebody from another university from that discipline who comes in, looks at all of